Kaya, everyone, Kaya, welcome. Great to see a great crowd here for what is a very, very significant day in this Institute's history. There are times for any organisation where everything aligns at the same time for what is a very significant leap forward, and this is one of those times. Today, we're going to be launching our new brand, our 10-year plan for how we're going to reimagine research, and our impact report. These are really significant developments. The board, the executive, the SLC, and hopefully all of you are very invigorated and enthused by what we're going to present to you today. It really does build on this legacy, a 35-year legacy for this institute, with the idea of really accelerating our impact, our ability to improve the lives of kids, of happy, healthy kids. And let me particularly acknowledge the people online. We have people in our South Australian office, in Broome, in Port Hedland, of course, in Subiaco and Joondalup, and there are many others, I'm sure, who are joining from other parts around the country. And let me acknowledge you and say thank you to you for joining us. As I commence, I want to acknowledge that we here at the PCH site are on Whadjuk Noongar Boodja, and we're going to be welcoming Nick Abraham to do a welcome to country. Nick is a Noongar elder and very familiar to those of us here at Telethon Kids Institute. He also is the father of 5. He has, he and his wife Charmaine also have 25 grandchildren, 9 great-grandchildren. So if there's anyone who understands our mission for happy, healthier kids, it's Nick Abraham. Could you please welcome Nick Abraham to do a welcome to us?
Thank you, Jonathan. This one?
Yep.
Thank you. It was 25 plus and 5 plus. We're up to 9 great-grandchildren now and 30 grandchildren.
Wow.
So we're taking our time and doing our bit for the population. So Kaya Wanju, Nanjup Nurajini, Nanjup Nurajini. Hello and welcome. I'm happy to see you all here this morning. Also happy to be speaking with you this morning. As mentioned, my name is Nick Abraham and my family connections are Abraham, Benall, Humphrey, Hume, Mippy, Worrell, Nettle, Harris, and all the associated families that are connected to them. But also I must acknowledge my Porter Martin Warriors, my wife and the in-laws, Boltons and Woods, because they are also a very important part of our social fabric. And we come from many parts of Noongar country, but most importantly, my family come from this part of Noongar country, Whadjuk, which is the Boodja we're standing and sitting on here today. And if I want to go a bit more deeper, it goes into Muru country. And if I go into the next level of Noongar country, it may confuse you a little bit too much, so I'm going to leave it at that, okay? So Niji Noongar Boodja, Niji Noongar Warranki. This is Noongar country, this is the Noongar language that I'm speaking. Korunara Kobang, Na Noongar Mor Noongar Bridia, Korunjana Morichwanjini, Nonachini. So I'm just acknowledging the ancient land and the ancient language, but also my elders past, present and emerging, but also acknowledging your being here today to give you an opportunity to tell a history of this country that you may or may not be aware of. Now, I've only got about another 5 minutes to tell you that history that goes back 65 plus thousands of years. So hopefully you would walk with me on this journey. And to do that, I've got to bring you into this space. I've got to bring you into this space by asking you 3 personal questions. And because they're personal questions, nobody else needs to know the answer other than Boodja, country and world, the sky. So when you answer these questions, you answer them as loud as you can in your head. Boodja will hear you and world will hear you. Even those on TV, on radio land or TV land, just same as with the country where you're sitting today. You just say, you just answer these questions and that'll help you connecting with the country where you're sitting on. Are we all good with that? First question, as loud as you can in your head. Just let the Boodja and the world know your name. We all good with that one? Bit of a hesitation there. Next question, just let the Boodja and the world know who's your mob and where you're from. So who's your family and where you're from? You could have connections here. You could have connections to other parts of WA, other parts of Australia, even other parts of the world. Just let the Boodja and the world know who's your mob and where you're from. And depending how much you know your extended family, that may take a while. So I'm going to leave you with that. Now, the third question, the answer to the third question can only come from your core, your heart, and only you can answer this question. And that question is, what's important to you? And I'm going to leave you with that while I take you on this journey. This journey that I'm going to take you on is not about blame, it's not about shame, it's about understanding of the Boodja and country we're sitting and standing on here today. So So when Noongar people were given our knowledge through the oral tradition, it's passed down from our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our mums and dads, and the Noongar bosses from long, long ago. And they told us their stories. They're going to take you through. And some of these stories are embedded and passed on from generation to generation to give us some foundations of our values. And hopefully you can understand this process of the values that are still functioning today that we may not see. And the very first thing that all people taught us about is our mort. Now, mort is family, mum, dad, nan, pop, uncle, aunties, brothers, sisters. All the extended families and the different levels of relationships and responsibilities to each and every one of those, including the Koromart Ngulyas. As I mentioned, they're a very important part of our social fabric. That was also one of our laws of who we could and couldn't marry. We couldn't marry close bloodlines. We had to keep our genetics strong. And we have a system in place that's still functioning today of how we maintain that. Next, the old fellows taught us about our culture. What is culture? I'm going to give you a couple of definitions what I think culture is. You may agree and you may even add your own. For me, culture is about values. Culture is also about language. And through that language, it gives you your identity and your belonging and your beliefs and your spirituality. Next, the old fellows taught us about our Cardigan. Now, Cardigan's our knowledge system where the old people understood and knew the relationship between the sun, the stars, the moon, the plants, the animals, the waterways and the seasons, and how we live sustainably in those environments. Now, if anybody want to learn about the sun and the stars and the moon and the plants and the animals today, they'd have to go to university to learn about science. Our old people have that knowledge of how we looked after this land. Next, the old fellows taught us about our court wind. What is the art? What is the spirit? Bring them together, it's our well-being. And our old people taught us about our foods, our medicines, our sites, our ceremonies, and our social interaction and responsibilities and purpose. And they knew when we were out of balance physically and emotionally, how to use this system to bring us back into balance. And that was our health system. And the old people taught us that these key elements are connected to our budja and our land, because they knew if we look after country, country would look after us. And this one represents our British, our elders, because it was their responsibility of overlooking the system and making sure that our laws and customs are never broken. And that was our governance system. Now, that system was functioning on this land for many thousands of generations. Something strange happened in the early 1800s. Some people came and they saw this system and they ignored this system and imposed new laws and customs on my people. And immediately, everything that was important to us all of a sudden was illegal and outlawed. And immediately, we had disruptions to our elders and our British and our governance system. We had disruptions to our mort and our families. We had disruption to our culture and our language. We had disruption to our knowledge system of where we looked after this land. All of a sudden, we had no say in how our land was being divvied up. And we had disruption to our court and our health system. Of course, we couldn't get access to our sites for our foods, our medicines, our ceremonies, and our social interactions and responsibilities. Because all of a sudden, we were trespassing on Crown land and private properties. And these key things disconnecting us from Budja. And that's where my community is today, still picking up the pieces of this disconnection and this disruption. I just want to acknowledge that this type of disconnection and disruption happened in many parts of the world, long before it arrived here and long after it arrived here. In fact, it's happening in the world today. You need to look at the morning and evening news to see where this distraction and disruption is happening in other parts of the world. But I can only talk about the impacts this distraction and disruption out of my country, my culture, people, values, responsibilities, and purpose. Nan mort wer nijinin, nala boring wanking nijinin. Nan mort nijinin, nor nijinin. So despite all this recent disruption, our people's spirits are still here. Despite all this recent disruption, our spirit stories are still here. Despite all this recent disruption, we are still here. Throughout this disruption, many others have come. And my ancestors will be angry with me if I do not tell the real history of this country that many Western Australians may not be aware of. And I just want to say, Mama Jinanalaya and Bodaranjini, let those that have gone before us help us to open our eyes, our ears, our head and heart to understand and appreciate of what was, what is. But my people still live in hope of tomorrow. And hopefully one day we can walk together on a better journey, not only for my generations and the future generations, but also yours and our children going forward. And we just look for that hope and just let the good spirits walk with us. So we're here today and celebrate this new branding, but also walk with us into the future. So thank you and have a beautiful day.
Thank you, Nick, for that warm welcome and also for that message of hope. And I also acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, particularly the elders past and present. Any of you who know the kids know that we have this overarching commitment to First Nations health and equity, and I can assure you that that continues and indeed is strengthened in our new strategic plan. It really does. It runs across everything we do. It's about what we do, but also how we work. We also acknowledge that the work we do, it benefits all kids. We are here for all kids, but we also recognise that there are some kids who miss out more, who need more help, and that they should proportionately benefit more from our science. And that's also a critical part of our new strategic plan. So you will see in that plan that I'll unveil shortly how we are strengthening those elements, but we've also made sure that these elements, the First Nations elements, are really a critical part and integral part of our new brand. And so on that note, I'd like to hand over to our Director of First Nations Strategy and Leadership, Associate Professor Glenn Pearson. Please welcome Glenn.
Hi everybody. Woo! Free biscuits. You must be all Noongars, you mob. Look at that. Uncle Nick, thank you for that really powerful and very poignant story. It's very grounding for us. And I know that in opening a space for us to come together and think deeply about our mission, truly and deeply, is an incredible honour. And thank you for bestowing that on us, on this amazing country. As a Noongar myself, my traditional ties through my mother take me to Ravensthorpe and Albany, and my mother's father's side into the Ute country. So, but I have been blessed to be invited to be on this country to do good work. So thank you for your welcome today. Wow, it's pretty big, pretty flash. The boss give me a couple more extra minutes for today, but this evening when I do this, they're going to keep me on time. So this is without a doubt a really powerful, very big day for us on so many different levels and for so many different reasons. And Jonathan will lay out in his presentation today the extent to which this ongoing ambition and mission for us to be able to realise who we are in the world, in the work that we do, in the relationships and responsibilities we have in our research, that they will contribute to sustainable positive evidence gains in the lives of kids in this state, in this country and in the world. And the commitment and prioritisation towards other families in our community that are doing it tough, other vulnerable families, and particularly because of the historical reasons, the relationship we have with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders has become a priority. It's always been a golden thread in the Institute's work from its inception. But 15 years ago, when Jonathan's arrival, in realising that we had this incredible amount of research that we were doing, we identified something like 22 themes of research. And Jonathan's ambition was, how can we bring that together better? And so that arrived through a conversation where 4 areas of research, 4 themes of research were identified, of which Jonathan said there needed to be an Aboriginal health theme. So it started, this conversation started at the top with Jonathan. And so in making that decision and in the restructure, Jonathan asked, well, what is it that we need to do to even take it further and deeper and more connected to our communities? And so I've had that privilege of working with all of you in this room and online at all the different levels to look at how can we integrate the needs of Aboriginal kids across everything we do, such as that the health of Aboriginal kids is everyone's business, literally. It's a really powerful space. It's about creating the right conditions for change. It gave us an opportunity to develop our first commitment to Aboriginal children and families. It was understandably and unapologetically about focusing on us. We need to be able to develop the right conditions for change, to develop internal means for consensus and connection, such that what we do here then manifests in our work. The epitome of those and that effort is being outlined in our standards of research practice. That Koonga, as part of developing our ability, was once an Aboriginal research network, a conduit between our Aboriginal medical services and community and our research. It's now really central as part of our professional services to be able to connect with us in terms of ensuring that we do good business with community that sets us up by way of good relationship to take responsibility for the work that we do. It's a big day for us in stepping into this this next new stage of ours. But as we step into the new research measures strategic plan, I want to acknowledge that in the previous Up for the Challenge strategic plan, this instrument gave a number of commitments, and one for me felt like almost like my job was done here in some regards. we made this really outrageous statement that said that we will no longer ignore nor accept the continued disparity between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids and all other Australian kids. You got to remember, this is a non-Aboriginal organisation. That's a very brave statement to come out publicly. It's a line in the sand, and like once you know it, you can't unknow it. Once you say it, you can't unsay it. And that has provided us real confidence and real hope to really start to do the deep work, to think about what is it we need to do deliberately and purposefully if we are seriously going to change the circumstance of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids in this country. So as Jonathan mentioned, there is going to be a number of restatements and recommitments to the ongoing support towards prioritisation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids as part of a broader equity. That what we've learned in our ambition in working with community, that we can also realise that with other vulnerable families in other new Australian families beyond Aboriginal families alone. I'm really excited about that this journey we've been on now has incredible value beyond the terms of what it originally intended for, that it becomes who we are in the way that we, as Uncle Nick said, we come together and do business together. So none of that should be a surprise that when we came to thinking about our new name for the Institute, and most definitely thinking about our new brand, that we wanted to be able to bring the story of country up into the middle of us in a way that we're able to celebrate in an ongoing way, in an iconic and symbolic and in a colourful way, our new brand. And so I wanted to actually acknowledge and thank this amazing group under the leadership of Liz Chester and her team, Auntie Mara, Auntie Val, my bubbly up in the Broome, young Liam Bedford, I think is a really cool cat, and Thomas Betts, who I haven't had the chance to meet yet, brother, but I'm really looking forward to. And we've got a little video that we'd like to share with you that allow us to introduce you our new brand and tell the story of it. I'd also like to thank the talented Kim Wilson from Nanny Design, who brought this story to life. It's really powerful, and Aboriginal history, Aboriginal culture is about stories and finding ourselves in those stories. So hopefully when you see this next little video, we'd love to see that you find you in it with us as we go forward. Thank you. So I'm going to hand it over to Auntie Val. Where's Auntie Val, Auntie Mara?
Aboriginal health is everyone's business here at the Kids Research Institute Australia. It's what all our research ties back to.
Now you can see this commitment proudly front and centre in our new logo.
For the design, we've chosen elements that are universal across the country.
For thousands of generations, we've heard and shared stories about the stars. They are the same stars, but we may have different stories for them.
Wherever you are, there's always an element that can take you back to where you're from, like the desert.
The river.
The forest.
The ocean.
The symbols and elements link us, just like our passion for children's health links us here at the Kids.
Healthy kids means
Healthy family, healthy country, healthy home.
Strong kids with a bright future.
Safe, are given a great start to life.
they know who they are.
They should have a chance, you know.
I'm incredibly proud that these elements are part of the logo.
All those elements make up country.
It represents places where kids can be happy and healthy.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mara. Thank you, Val. Thank you, Liam. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Glenn, wherever you are. He's disappeared. So we're now about to get down to the fun bit of revealing our new logo, and we'll show you how we've managed to incorporate those elements into it. So without further ado, let me welcome our Director of Partnerships and Engagement, Liz Chester. Thanks, Liz.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. And I'm going to make you wait just a little bit longer because that's the fun of all of this, isn't it? Because first of all, what I want to do is actually recognise the legacy that Telethon has been in our name for 29 out of the 35 years that we've been functioning, Telethon has been part of our name, and from now on, of course, it won't be. But that doesn't mean that we don't continue to be a really significant partner of Telethon, and it also means that that legacy lives on in all the work that we do into the future. I think it, along with Telethon Speech and Hearing, the fact that Telethon now supports 130 organisations is something we should all celebrate. But as they mature, we also mature, and I think this new brand is a real opportunity for us to show that to everyone. So you already know the name. We let that be known so we could plan for all of this. So the word kids, as you know, is where we hold the equity. We're telling people we do research. We make no mistake about that. And building on our origins here in WA, we're proud to collaborate and deliver impact nationally and internationally, hence the Australia. So that's how we arrived at the Kids Research Institute Australia, or I'm sure you'll pretty quickly adopt the kids. So now it is time to show you what it looks like. So to help Jonathan unveil the new logo, if I can invite Auntie Mara, if I can invite Pam Laird, who we should celebrate as the EMCR joint winner of the Premier Science Award, to help with the reveal, that would be fantastic. And I'm going to get out of the way so you can see. I am. I'm just moving, which is very squeezing through here. All right, so I think we all need to help them. We're going to count down from 3. Are we ready? 3, 2, 1. And I hope you can see all those elements that were described in the video brought to life in the new logo. You forgot your photo moment, guys. Oh, do we have a photo moment? That's okay. We'll do another photo moment a little bit later on. But I want to show you on the screen, you'll see that all of those elements were brought to life in a beautiful artwork by Kevin Wilson, who was the beautiful artist from Nani Design. And that leads us to the next thing, which I know you're actually really keen to see, is the new staff shirts. So let me introduce to you our very reluctant models. Nikki Graham, who's been amazing from procurement, and our own Mitch Messer from community engagement, to show you what you'll be straight. Reluctant. I was overstating it. They didn't seem too reluctant at all. So Nikki and Mitch, thank you so much for doing that. And I hope that you will look forward to receiving those shirts and that you will wear them with pride and that you will know the story of what the different elements are within those different elements within the shirt. Now, just to give you a little bit more detail, the official change of name, website, emails, all happens this evening. So from tomorrow, your email address will change. Do not panic, can I say? They are not going to disappear into the magical ether. We have an amazing ICT team who have taken care of making sure that everything is redirected, and your old email addresses will work for a very long time to come. But as you start replying as thekids.org.au, it will all work. If there is a problem, let us know. We'll get it sorted. And that's what happens when we change brand. We think that we have accounted for many things, but there may be a couple of little hiccups along the way. Can I just ask for your patience and clear communication? Let the comms team know, the facilities team know, the ICT teams know if there's any problem at all, and we will make it a priority to get things sorted. So the new PowerPoint templates, logo style guide, because we're going to be pretty strict with the rules, and all the other brand details will soon be up on Telescope. And there's also FAQs that you can read that you'll be able to discover. And the more that you ask, the more we'll update them, so we'll be able to keep making sure that everybody gets that information. Okay, in our marketing of this new brand, because launching a brand is one thing, embedding a brand is something else, which will take months for us to do, and I need every one of you to help us with it. We're going to be asking everyone to think of the kids. It works on many levels, and to that level, we've actually developed a brand manifesto, which I'd love to share with you now.
We think of the fingers. We think of the toes. We think of the eyes. We think of the nose. We think of the laughter. We think of the tears. We think of the tummies. We think of the ears. We think of the breathing. We think of the air. We think of equity. We think what is fair. We think of the mind. We think of the brain. We think of the suffering. We think of the pain. We think of immunity. We think of the cure. We think of the newborns. We think premature. We think of the therapies. We think of the genes. We think of the future. We think of the teens. We think of the progress. We think of the scope. We think of the parents. We think of the hope. We think of the kids. Every little detail. Anything that might harm them and everything that could help. That thinking leaves the lab and changes the world. It becomes treatments, medicines, policies and programs for happier, healthier kids everywhere. Think of the kids.
Makes you realise the work we've got to do, doesn't it? It's really super important. So we have a 24-page lift out going in the West Australian tomorrow, which has been edited by the fabulous Karen McKinnon and the team. Gorgeous stories in that. They'll also be supplied regionally, and we'll also have copies that you'll receive at the end of today. So I hope that you'll be able to share that. There'll be digital content. There will be a takeover of the West website tomorrow, and then we'll start to embed this thinking through everything that we do. May I acknowledge that a name change and brand creates work for everyone, every one of us across the organisation. So to everyone, can I say a very big thank you. Can I particularly thank, though, the Rebrand Working Group, who have worked so hard to try and anticipate and address any potential issues. There's been a lot of meetings and they've done a lot of hard work. Can I also do a shout out to some specific professional services teams who've had quite a burden. Now, just look at this and we say thank you to facilities, and Clint is still working on our signage, which will change over in the next month or two, and that's an enormous task in itself. To the people in culture team, there's a lot of stuff that needs updating there, legal and contracts, procurement, and of course ICT teams for all their hard work. To all of my teams, a very special thank you. It's been wonderful to see you all work together, but particularly the development, community engagement, Caloonga and government relations teams as we bring our stakeholders with us on this journey. It's really important external messaging. We have 2 more launch events for stakeholders and community tonight and tomorrow night, and they'll be working really hard. And on that level, can I also say a big shout out to Atelier House of Events, Caroline, Joel and Lindsay, who transformed this place, which looks amazing, and we'll be able to share with our stakeholders over the next couple of days. And get used to this fabulous look, because all of this is reusable and we'll be using it for many events to come into the future. So that's been really fresh and they've done an amazing job. Most of all, I do want to single out the comms team led by the incredible Karen. Every person in the team has gone above and beyond. So much has been done in-house to keep budgets down, and that's been all on top of business as usual. It's been a phenomenal effort, and I just want to say I think you're amazing professionals, and thank you very much for all the work that you've done. I'm very, very proud. Jonathan, with all of that, brand, why do we care about it? Because it's what supports the organisational strategy. Brand is linked to strategy. It doesn't sit separately from that. And this is all about us all pushing together to achieve some really significant outcomes from kids. So on that basis, happy to hand back to you to actually unveil the bigger piece of news, which is our new strategic plan.
And yeah, let me just join in thanks to that long list of people and teams, but particularly the comms team, Karen, and you, Liz, of course, as well. So I know it's been, can I call it a labour of love, or not sure about that, but it's what a great result. And look, I get to stand in front of it. It's fantastic. All right, so let's get on to the strategic plan because this is a day of celebration, but I do want to take a few moments to reflect on why we're working up a new strategic plan. It's been a hard few years, obviously the COVID pandemic, but we continue to battle for funding in a system that is trying to change, but it's changing very slowly. And we're trying to come up with a way of how we have research that has even more impact in that sort of environment, which is really a lot of the problems we're trying to sort out through the strategic plan. Because often research feels like a grind where we focus more on survival than on perhaps the impact of what we can do. And that's something that we're really keen to tackle. We have to also acknowledge that despite that, we are an incredibly successful organisation. We've had some extraordinary stories of great science, of great outputs, and of course of great impact. And by any measure, no matter what metrics you look at compared to the majority of research institutes in our sector, we are one of the most successful ones. But it's not a model that's sustainable in the long term. It's not enough. And that's really what we're trying to do with the new plan. So I want to thank everyone who participated in the consultations. Many of you were part of those consultations. You spoke very honestly to us and we heard you and we listened. And the clear messages we've heard that we've taken on board, you said you wanted greater focus. You wanted us to be able to concentrate our efforts on some big things. And when we've done that, you wanted us to get our house in order. We heard that loud and clear with the systems, the processes, the services that we offer that can improve our ability to do great research, but also to make sure that they were more coordinated and indeed more centralised. You asked us for change, but you also wanted clarity as to where we're heading. You wanted clear and accountable leadership, and you wanted us to get on with it. And most of all, we heard that you wanted us to deliver more impact and faster. And this came internally and also came from our external stakeholders. So I believe this new plan can deliver on all of that. What I also will undertake to you is that the changes that we're proposing in this plan are not going to be rushed out. They're not going to be imposed on you. They will be implemented in a considered way, and you will be part of that process. And I'll get on to more detail about that. So why are we calling our new strategy Research Reimagined? At this institute, we've never been afraid to take chances, to try new things. This is about laying out not just a 5-year strategy, but a 10-year strategy. We believe that we need time. We're building on the foundations of 2 strategic plans that have set us up for even greater impact. And that impact is going to be really focused on how we deliver results rather than the primary driver being where we get our ground income. In other words, we see the future built around not where the next big grant will come from, but where the next big research advance will happen. We also recognise that we need to take greater responsibility for driving the outcomes of our research into the hands of kids and families, the people who can make a big difference, into the service providers. Now, we've done that really well at the Institute. We've got some wonderful stories, and later on I'll be launching our impact report, and yet again, we've got some great stories of the impact of our research. But we've also recognised, and we heard from you, that all too often that's down to the individual researcher or the individual research team. And there are some teams who can understand a bit more about how to get their results out into impact, and others who maybe aren't so equipped for it, and that we as an institute can take greater responsibility for that, and we'll be doing that. We also recognise that we can't do this alone, and at the heart of this plan is a commitment to genuine, true partnerships and collaborations. And that also requires a little bit of humility. And we've heard this, especially from our external stakeholders, that sometimes we maybe don't recognise that there are times we do need to lead, but there are other times we need to walk alongside or even just facilitate the success of others. And whatever it takes to get great science and to get great impact is what we need to focus on. And then, of course, as we've talked about, whilst our research is for all kids, we have an overarching commitment to equity. And we restate our aim to be the leading Indigenous child health research organisation in the world. And we don't do that for our own self-aggrandisement. We do it because we know that our science, if we do it well, can benefit First Nations kids, but it also can translate to health of kids around the world. And we have a responsibility to make sure that we do that. So we're going to take a look at the strategy. And let me begin by pointing out 3 important things as I take you through this. Firstly, none of what I'm going to present today should be actually a surprise, because we've been talking about this for several months. Those of you who participated in the workshops, who've been involved in various other consultations, will be aware of most of what I'm talking about today. And that's actually as it should be. This shouldn't come out of left field. Secondly, don't expect this to be a seismic shift in our direction. This is building on those foundations of the previous plans, but it's about amplifying and accelerating our ability to have impact. And thirdly, keep in mind that strategic plans, by their very nature, are always high level. And so there's not a lot of specifics in there. I'll try and give you a few examples as we go through today as the sort of things we're thinking about. But the real fun comes in the detailed implementation plans, and that's the work over the next 6 months, and that's where you get to be part of that. All right, so let's go to the vision. The vision hasn't changed. Our vision is the same: happy, healthy kids. Our values are the same: courage, collaboration, evidence, and respect. We have simplified our purpose. It's more direct: to find solutions to improve the health and happiness of children and young people. Now, under the plan, what's really critical is the research environment that we work in. And we are going to be transitioning our research environment to one that is more structured around delivering results than necessarily being driven by grant income, as I've talked about. So it does mean changes to the structure. It does mean changes to how we work together. The new research environment has 2 key elements: our research themes and challenges, both of which we've talked to you about before. Now, we know that most researchers are most closely connected to their teams. That is not going to change. You will still be in your team, working closely within your team. We also know that those teams have their home in the themes. That's, if you like, your neighbourhood in which your team works. We are going to be having, as you'll see here, 6 research themes. So these themes are strong beginnings, well-being and mental health, infectious diseases, chronic diseases, and precision health. And then the overarching theme, as you'll see, continues to be First Nations health and equity. The idea of these is that mostly they are smaller themes, and they are more grouped around teams that have similar work in common. In other words, that there will be a greater chance of shared research amongst the groups, the teams that are in those themes. We are going to then work with each of these themes to develop strategies, and those strategies will identify priorities of work. They will identify clear roadmaps, including some desired outcomes, timelines, and associated funding plans. Of course, those strategies are going to vary theme by theme. Some themes are larger and have multiple subgroups, and they'll have sub-strategies. Others will be a bit more able to come up with a single unifying strategy. But the whole concept is we want to take a more strategic approach to the research we do, so that it's less ad hoc, if you like. It's less down to just the individual scientist or the individual team heading off in whatever direction they want. We still want to foster a lot of that, but we also believe there's a lot more benefits to teams working together. Now, you're all looking at this wondering, where does my team fit? The SLC has done a fair bit of mapping already, but none of it is locked in. And so over the next few months, there will be decisions made together with team leaders as part of that implementation plan. You've seen that we continue that overarching theme of First Nations health and equity. Centres will still remain. They will be housed within themes, but like all teams within the themes, like the centres, will also be encouraged to work across themes. So we want to encourage much more of that less siloed, more collaborative approach. We won't have programs anymore within the themes, but that doesn't mean that teams can't continue to work closely together with other teams on strategic initiatives. We really want to encourage that. We just don't want to predefine what those partnerships might look like, and we want people to be, or teams to feel free to, if you like, self-organise and come up with new ideas about how you could work together. In other words, the goal is to have a more strategic approach, including accountabilities for all of our research activity. And this will also allow us to have a much clearer roadmap about the sort of work we do and where we're heading. The next part is the challenges. And this is, I guess you could define it as thinking about research that attempts to answer very specific questions or maybe starts with the end in mind. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, well, we already do that. And we absolutely do have groups working in a challenge-focused way across the Institute. What I would ask you, though, is to think about this not so much as, I'm sure if I went up to any of you and said, what is your research aiming to do? You'll be able to articulate that for me. I'm aiming to answer X question, or I'm aiming to develop X treatment for a disease. What you may not have articulated is the detail about what it would take to do that. Who would you require to work with, and how could you accelerate that? What might be the time frames? Have you said we could do this in X period of time? What partners would you need to bring to the table in order to increase your chances of making that happen? And of course, what funding might you need? And that's what we're talking about with the more challenge-driven approach to our science. Think of them in different scales too. There will be challenges at the team level. They'll be quite focused. There might be work that you're already doing where you could, as a team, sit down and say, if we focused on this or that, we could see an outcome in a certain period of time. As opposed to what often happens is that we don't set those objectives. And I personally can tell you about research I've been involved in that's gone on for years. We've made progress. We are heading in a great direction. But on retrospect, if I'd taken an approach, a strategic approach, where I said, can we work together to get this particular piece to this end point in the next 3 to 4 years, I reckon we could have done it more effectively and more faster. So then, of course, there's the higher level challenges. And of course, we get to the whole of institute challenges, the idea of these grand challenges. Those are bigger questions. Those are bigger objectives. They require whole of institute focusing, but a whole lot of external support. That's where we get our partners involved. We get our funders involved, and we get them excited about answering critical questions and delivering tangible impacts. Over time, yes, we expect to see more of our research as, if you like, challenge-driven research, but let me also reassure you, this is not at the expense of curiosity-driven science. We absolutely have to retain that as a core element, and every theme will be charged with making sure that they can articulate how that is going to look, because we need people, we need scientists to still spend a lot of their time thinking about new ideas, trying new things, heading off in different tangential directions. Those are the breakthroughs of tomorrow. And so that's going to be a very important part of what we do. We also know that challenges are very appealing to funders and to the community, and I'll get onto that in a minute. All right, so there are going to be 3 pillars to how we're going to approach this new strategy: focus, impact, and thrive. So focus particularly. This is again responding to that feedback we heard from you and from others about being more clearly defining of the areas of research that we are going to be working on. And in particular, the areas where we have agreed priorities, and especially those where we have particular value to add. Obviously, we know that it's going to be things like setting priorities, implementing the challenge model, focusing on research excellence and partnerships. But let me give you an example. You all saw, I'm sure, last weekend, the announcement of funding for the Comprehensive Kids Cancer Centre. That didn't come about just overnight. That was a big piece of work where the centre worked very closely with the leadership in articulating how the research in cancer that this institute is involved in partnership with PCH, could be taken to the next level. And we said we need a 10-year vision here. We need to stop talking about 3-year projects. We need to talk about a 10-year combined vision. And they did a wonderful job at coming up with a vision about the need to focus on the kids with cancer today, what we can do better for them, but also what about the kids who are going to develop cancer tomorrow? And in that piece, that then came down to what do we need to do to hook into what others around the world are doing, and then where do we really add the specific value that we could prioritise? And they really identified 3 areas where our research in cancer really adds value. That idea of identifying new combination therapies, focusing on post-surgical therapies for solid tumours, and also making available our world-first paediatric mouse model. And that's the sort of thinking that we need, identifying priority areas. Does it mean that that's all the Cancer Centre is going to do? Absolutely not. There's going to still be a whole lot of other work that's going to be fostered, but there will be a requirement for teams to work together to deliver the things that we said we were going to deliver. And there are very clear KPIs along the way. What are we going to do in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years? We're not just asking people to sign a blank check for 10 years and come back in 10 years and we'll show you what we've done. It's going to be carefully managed along the way. Our funders and partners love the message. They love to see that we are taking a much more strategic approach to our research. Within that, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for investigator-initiated science, plenty of opportunity for early career researchers to get their competitive funding. And in fact, those are going to be enhanced because they're working in a big area of big partnerships where they're going to get access to samples, where they're going to get access to community support, much more feasibility to their science. And what did that mean? It means that we brought in the single largest philanthropic donation in Australia to date. And that's the sort of thing that we can achieve with this strategic plan across the Institute. Now, I need you to start thinking about how could we do that in the area we work, and how can I talk to various others across the Institute to come up with the next iteration of that sort of an objective. Okay, impact. This is about delivering tangible solutions. This is going back to what I said before, that we're going to take responsibility as an organisation, more responsibility for ensuring our research goes somewhere and does something. We're not going to be just accepting, we're going to celebrate the existing examples of impact, but we're going to try and do more. And that means we're going to be creating a specialised impact unit where we can have a centralised capacity to work with researchers, to work with other stakeholders, whether it's to commercialise, to translate into policy, to translate into practice, things like devices, digital health. We want to be able to support researchers in a much more effective way than we have. There are plenty of examples that you can look across. Inklings is a good example of how research has been taken into action to deliver benefits to kids and families, but also to develop benefits for the economy. We've got many guidelines that have come out of this institute. The recent Healthy Skin guidelines that have been updated. Great example of taking out the science and putting it into the hands of people who are going to be able to improve their ability to deliver services to kids. The incredible success of the RSV immunisation in Western Australia, that our science had a lot of input into developing that as a policy, that has saved many lives here in Western Australia and is now being translated to other parts. We think there are lots of examples like these out there, and we want to make sure that we ensure that we get impact out of our science more effectively than we have. And then thrive. And this is about making sure we thrive as an organisation. And what does that mean? It means an empowered and supported workforce, but also an improved bottom line. Those are two things we absolutely have to focus on in our new strategic plan. So that means a focus on workplace culture, the financial foundations, diversifying opportunities, and also optimising our centralised support services and platforms. And we have heard that from you, and that will be a really important part of it. So if you think about some examples, well, we know we've signed on to the Institute Way. We now need to make sure that's embedded across the organisation. A great example of how we're going to continue to improve the culture of this place. We've looked at the tender and evaluation unit and thought about how we can enhance their ability to work across the Institute, both as a way of exemplifying or amplifying our impact, but also broadening our revenue base. And of course, we know that there's that desire that we are really committed to try and support for a one-stop shop for research support, how we can make it easier for researchers not to have to navigate multiple different professional services. So having articulated the strategies within themes, the validity of the research pipeline, we are obviously needing to make sure we allocate resources where they're needed. And that means that we can be much more efficient in how we provide those services. All right, so what can you expect to see? And this is, you can expect to see a lot, but these are some headlines. More tangible outcomes delivered sooner. That's something that we've heard from both internally but also externally, that helps build the brand, it helps build our reputation. A strong network of partnerships. Those are going to be so important locally, nationally, globally. And let me reiterate, some of those we lead, some of those we walk alongside, some of those we follow. And that's as it should be. A dynamic and generous scientific environment where we work together to solve important problems. And we put generous in there really, I was so focused on making sure that word was in our plan, because generosity is something that is hard to offer in an environment where you feel like you're just trying to survive. And that's what we're trying to do, is to move to an environment where it's not all about survival. And we know that if we are generous, if we support each other, if we're generous with the outside world, then we become great partners ourselves and we support careers much more effectively. Efficient, streamlined, cutting-edge services and platforms to support research and impact. A high-performing organisational culture with strong alignment to our purpose and values. And openness and transparency as we monitor progress, hold ourselves to account. And the board was very clear they also want to emphasise effective governance as well as a financially sustainable organisation. None of this, I'm hoping, again, will be a surprise to you, but it's really embodying what are the critical things, because each of these dot points we will be needing to flesh out in our implementation plan and as we report back to our board and to our stakeholders. So we're going to make it happen. When? So the stuff I've talked about is not happening tomorrow. You don't need to worry about it. There's a planning process. The next 6 months are about planning the implementation. And that's going to have lots of opportunities for working groups on individual pieces. And we give you the opportunity to get involved in that. But we also need you to think about it. Think about how to bring this to life. What would a great challenge look like and how might we best support it? How can we better structure the teams within themes? What will that impact unit look like? What will it deliver? What sort of skill sets do we need? How will we, and this is a really important one, how are we going to track and measure our success? And that's always one that the board's asking for, but it's not that easy to do. Of course, how can we bring in more funding? And I'm thinking big funding. How within this do we support research careers, particularly those early career researchers, to identify the things that they do that give them their track record so that they can develop themselves into the research leaders of the future? We were going to be implementing in the first half of next year. So we have deliberately said this is a 2025 onward strategic plan because we do want to take that time in the next few months to really get this right. So that's the plan. The launch is really the first step in our ambition, and it sets out the high-level goals, the high-level strategies. The implementation plan is now getting underway. There are not going to be sudden changes. We will continue to communicate with you along the way, but in the meantime, you keep doing the stuff you're doing, you keep doing your science. I still want you to be writing those funding applications, to be getting publications along the way. So it's not going to be a seismic change overnight. It's going to be an opportunity for you to buy into what I think are going to be exciting, more impactful ways of working. Read the plan. We'll have hard copies available, but there's mainly it's going to be on Telescope. So have a good look at it. There are some FAQs. So I know you'll have a lot of questions. We've tried to anticipate them. We'll be adding to those FAQs as we go along the way. I'd love your thoughts on where you see the opportunities in this plan. And we'll think about how we can, feel free to just email, but also we'll send you some opportunities to get involved in how you can imagine the things that we could do, because we're hoping this has set us up to do some really exciting things that maybe we haven't even thought about. I do want to thank everyone who's contributed to the strategic planning process. It's been a huge piece of work. A lot of you have been involved in those consultations. Many of you participated in the workshops that found other way to put impact. And of course, the executive, but especially the SLC, worked really hard to develop the whole idea of how we're going to do our research. And if you get involved, our plan is going to be better and stronger. So I'd ask you to have a really good look and think about how this would reflect on the work you do and the work the Institute does. I'm excited. The board is excited. I think this sets us up for a really terrific future. And so to that, I want to show you another video that goes to the heart of what we're trying to achieve.
What makes me happy is Spending time with my family.
Listening to music.
Playing soccer with friends. Being on country.
Healthy kids get to laugh with the people they love most.
But sometimes kids get sick.
Their bodies don't work properly.
Chemo makes you feel like your body is slowly shutting down.
When I feel like my airways are restricted, I get really anxious.
I don't like taking a lot of pills every day.
Parents never stop worrying about their kids.
They should never lose those precious years to cancer.
Unfortunately, Aboriginal kids still have worse health outcomes than all other Australian kids.
When I see kids struggling to breathe, I find it really heartbreaking.
Kids are not little adults. Their biology and needs are very different.
When kids develop differently, it can bring great strengths, but also challenges.
So what can I do for the kids?
For me, it's to find the cause of diabetes so that no child has to live with type 1.
For kids with cancer, less toxic, more targeted treatments.
I can make the health of Aboriginal kids everyone's business.
We're leading the fight against antibiotic-resistant superbugs so children with cystic fibrosis can live longer, healthier lives.
For me, it's about finding developmental concerns early so that all kids can thrive.
It's about removing barriers in their lives so they can be whoever they want to be.
I wish all kids could be healthy.
When kids are sick, when kids are struggling, our job is to find solutions.
Think of the kids.
So think of the kids, everyone. I think it's a great tagline. It's really how we want people to think of us, and it's then how we go about doing our work. So thanks also to those of you who appeared in that video. It's really important for us to be able to get that out, not just here, but externally as well. One last privilege I get is to launch this year's Impact Report. Hopefully those of you who work here have been reading the Impact Reports over the years. I love reading this publication every year. It's one that kind of encapsulates the things that we do, the things that are already out there, the things that are in the pipeline, the things that are paradigm changing. This year's another bumper edition. I really encourage you to have a good look because it kind of encapsulates a lot of the things that we want to continue to accelerate and to amplify. Before I sign off, remember to collect your gift bags and your polo shirts, and there's a bit of a morning tea as well here. For staff at the Subiaco Joondalup Room and Adelaide offices, your gift bags should have arrived in time for this morning's event, and I think you've also got a bit of catering there. I do hope you want to share the new look and logo on your social media platforms and also with all your friends. All of this is about embedding our new brand. So a huge amount of excitement all for one morning. Hopefully it's not been too much for you. Have a look at the strategic plan, enjoy the brand, enjoy the fact that it's all about the kids, think of the kids. Enjoy the morning tea, and thank you so much for your contribution to the kids. Good morning.